Barnwell, Dan Graziano. So, Dominique Foxworth, I'm going to start with you. What if the Giants trade for Matthew Stafford?
Then Matt Stafford's going to get hit a lot, and the Giants are still going to be kind of bad. I mean, my initial reaction is that they stink, but they had 3 wins last year. That's stinky. They'll be better than that, but they still won't be all that competitive in that division. And I think I know it's gotten a lot better with the rise of the Commanders. So I don't think it's a great move for either Stafford or the Giants, honestly.
So, Barnwell, your thoughts on this if in the Stafford and the Giants?
Well, I see it for the Giants, given that they want to be competitive. They have Brian Dable, they have Malik Neighbors, they have some infrastructure there. But I don't get it for Matthew Stafford, who's made $364 million over the course of his career. He's approaching the GDP of Micronesia in terms of his career earnings. If you're feuding with the Rams over not having as much money as you might want, is it really worth abandoning that and going to the Giants for $10 million more in guaranteed money? It just doesn't really add up to me.
Ross?
Yeah, I think what's going on here with the Rams and Matthew Stafford is I think he'd like to stay, but as was the case last year, they have to work something out with the contract. Right now, he's at $27 million, and while that, when is enough? That's still that's almost like low-end starter money, and Matthew Stafford is not that. So you want to work something out. Does that mean just bumping up this year's salary? Does it mean some sort of longer-term deal? His cap number is close to $50 million, so it would benefit the Rams to work something out as well. So we'll see if he's bluffing. We'll see if the Giants get involved if and when the Rams decide to move him.
Yeah, it's always fascinating with contract discussions. Which side is bluffing, which side isn't. We'll see with Stafford. But to Foxworth's point, I mean, you're at a pretty stable organization.
I don't know why you'd want to leave.
You want to leave?
Yeah.
Great question. All right, I've got another what if for you, Graziano, as we keep the quarterback meet alive. What if, Graziano, Russell Wilson reunites with Pete Carroll?
Well, then it would be an off-season of good feeling in Las Vegas because Pete Carroll is a notorious optimist and positive and upbeat guy, and Russell Wilson is obviously going to come in and be gung-ho and let's go Raiders and all that kind of stuff. I think it would be the infusion of positivity that this franchise maybe needs. What it would mean in terms of the Raiders on the field and the offense, that's not for me to say, but I do think there would be a lot of really excited talk going on around the Raiders.
So you're saying strictly because of this, some kumbaya, feeling good, it's going to be great out there. Neek, Russ on the Raiders to you would equal what?
I mean, I like the kumbaya thoughts from Graziano, but it didn't end that way for Russ and Carroll in Seattle. So I don't know if they've both been humbled enough now that they want to work together again, but neither of those guys seem to really want to be together at their last stop in Seattle. So maybe putting them together does elevate the Raiders' quarterback floor to a place that it hasn't been in a while, but it's not the long-term solution there, obviously.
Sometimes in a divorce, you reconcile.
Sometimes.
Maybe this is a reconciliation when both of them had to go on to not bigger and better things, just separate things.
Don't go back.
Barnwell, you don't love this reunion like Neek. Why is that?
I just don't see the logic here from the Raiders' perspective. This team has been a mess. They haven't won a playoff game in more than 20 years. They need to do things the right way. They need to rebuild. Their draft picks outside of Max Crosby from the John Gruden era were a disaster. Their picks from the Josh McDaniels era, mostly a disaster. I understand, hey, you want to get better vibes in your building? No issue with that. But you don't have to have the vibes guy be the starting quarterback.
No,
get the vibes elsewhere, make a longer-term investment in a quarterback.
But is Russell Wilson really a vibes guy? I've never really thought of him in his career as
outwardly,
vibes guy.
Outwardly, in the press conference.
Yeah, well, then you go behind closed doors and those vibes might change. Okay, our final what if is going to be for Barnwell. Speaking of the Steelers, which is where Russell Wilson currently resides. Bill, what if? What if Aaron Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh?
I actually like this one. I'm not the Debbie Downer on Aaron Rodgers going to the Steelers because he fits what they want to do on offense. They're going to win games with their defense, with their special teams, but they're 36-11 over the last 4 years when they win and tie the turnover battle. 2-18-1 when they lose the turnover battle. Aaron Rodgers' last 10 games of the season with the Jets, 18 touchdowns, 4 picks. The off-field fit, we would have to see, but the on-field fit does make sense to me in terms of what the Steelers want to do with their offense.
Dominique, do Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers need each other?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I think the tough thing about this conversation is what Bill kind of alluded to at the end is it's the off-field stuff, and it's impossible for us to evaluate where Aaron Rodgers' head is right now, and understanding that Mike Tomlin is not the guy to go and think that you're going to have a weekly media hit and you're going to skip OTAs and training camp and portions of off-season training. Like, it doesn't seem like that's what Mike Tomlin would want to sign up for. Maybe Aaron Rodgers' final experience in New York has humbled him to the point that he wants to refocus in that way, and then maybe this fit is the right fit because he is a risk-averse quarterback who doesn't turn the ball over very often. So it could be a good fit on the field, but off the field it's a big question mark.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin, that is a blue-collar franchise with a blue-collar head coach, Dan Graziano, that's not going to put up with the ayahuasca, whatever the hell that stuff is, and caves and...
Mike Tomlin will put up with a lot if you win, right? I mean, like, there's been some dudes that have gone through there that have made, Mike Tomlin's job a little more difficult. Not necessarily at quarterback, but yeah, it makes sense from a on paper standpoint.
Right.
But so did Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and that was a complete catastrophe. Yeah. So I'm just not sure we can assume it'll be a smooth.
But here's the other thing too: we can't even assume we know if Aaron Rodgers wants to play football.
That's also true.
That's the big.
Can't assume anything.
That's a big equation there. Not in this
Aaron
situation. I have some sneaky big news. By the way, sneaky Hembo coming up in just a minute. You broke the news yesterday, Dan Graziano, about the salary cap increase for 2025 in the NFL.
Yeah, NFL letting teams know yesterday that the salary cap's going to go up this year to between $275.5 to $281.5 million. It's another significant increase over last year's $255.4. The final number, they still have to negotiate the final number with the Players Association, but they wanted to get this range to teams so they can budget ahead of free agency and the combine.
Could benefit a number of teams.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys, perhaps one of them, and in fact, one of their stars, Micah Parsons, took to. You got a fierce quote tweet. I mean, that's when you know you're making news. When you get a quote tweet with the LFG.
Yeah, Micah's fired up. I can't imagine if you're a player in the NFL in this market why you wouldn't be with the cap going up like this every year.
So the Cowboys look.
Dominique did that, by the way. That's his handiwork, the cap going up like this.
Really, Dominique did that. Congratulations.
Let me get
Dominique.
a piece.
So in that vein, Graz, we'll start there. Does the cap make sense, more likely or less likely that Micah gets his extension?
I don't know that it has much of an effect. Like, if you wanted to be really cynical about the Cowboys and say they never spend their money, whatever, you could say maybe it makes it less likely because, remember, Micah's cap number right now is $24 million on the fifth-year option. An extension would lower that.
Yeah.
So, like, if they were up against the cap and they needed to create cap room, the extension would be a way to do that, and now you could theoretically say this might delay it. But I'm not sure it has much of an effect. The way the Cowboys operate with these extensions, we've been over it so much the last couple of years, it usually drags out.
Yeah, Dominic, to be fair, Jerry's not exactly the best at balancing his checkbook. Now he's going to have more money in that account to spend. What do you think we'll learn about Jerry this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cap doesn't matter to Jerry. Unfortunately, it seems that he hasn't quite learned. Every year that he has a big free agent, he kicks the can down the road and ends up kind of hurting his team, costing himself more money, and reducing his flexibility. This is another opportunity where you have a clear star player that you know you want to be the centerpiece of the defense for years to come. Just pay him. Pay him market rate. Don't mess around. Don't try to stretch this out like you're going to get a good deal because you never end up getting the good deal. You always end up paying more than you expected. So hopefully Jerry's learned his lesson, and as soon as he's able to sign Micah Parsons, he signs him to the big extension that he deserves.
We've seen this with Jerry in the past. I mean, you can go back to Ezekiel Elliott, where he thought maybe he'd get a good deal there, and he overpaid Ezekiel Elliott, lost his talented linebacker in Jalen Smith, and we saw it with CeeDee Lamb, we saw it with Dak Prescott. This is Jerry 101, but Bill Barnwell, why aren't you confident this Cowboys offseason will look different than those in the past?
Because he's been patient till the very end, and like Dominic said, it has not made a difference in terms of saving money. Jerry Jones is the guy who at 4 p.m. on Valentine's Day is like, I should go get some flowers, maybe some chocolates. What's out there? Can I get a restaurant reservation?
Nothing's wrong with that guy.
Get that done earlier, Jerry. The entire Cowboys front office was waiting last year for them to get those deals done. And guys trickled out of the organization. Tyler Biadasz, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler, all of whom, by the way, went to the Washington Commanders with Dan Quinn and helped build a playoff team in the division. If you get this deal done early, not only do you pay Micah Parsons, not only do you get your cap settled, but you also then have your budget with cash for the other parts of the organization. So you know, okay, we can spend on this and that. We can add a running back. We can add a defensive tackle, stuff they need. And right now, until they pay Micah Parsons, they don't know what they have to work with.
Yes, and Dominic, infamously now last year when Jerry said, we're all in. We're going to be all in. And they couldn't have been further from all in. They were all out for pretty much most of the season. How much now with the cap, with Micah Parsons hanging out there, with the upcoming draft and a pretty healthy draft?